Everyday people in everyday places across the world are finding God. All of this has been made through him. He has promised to be with us. Where are you seeing him? Let's get sharing. Encounters. Stories of encounter with God.
Hey there, welcome to this new section called Encounters on God Stories Today. We are super excited about this new section, so excited that I'm even wearing my collar today. Yes, I am wearing my collar. And we're excited because we feel called to gather, and this is a bold claim, I know, but we kind of feel called to do it by God, so we're going to give it a go. We feel called to gather a fellowship of digital evangelist storytellers from across the world. Yes, from across the world, who feel called to use the power of story to tell people about God. And as the title of this section denotes, these stories are mainly going to be about stories of direct encounter with God. Stories sometimes are going to be dramatic, stories of healing, angels flying in the sky, for instance, conversions, all that sort of stuff. But often, actually, they're going to be stories, quiet stories, still small voice stories of when God has spoken to a digital evangelist storyteller about something to do with their life or a family member or God himself. But that digital evangelist storyteller knows it's a direct encounter with God. And they're just going to record them and relay them via this beautiful media called digital and filmmaking to all of you. So I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope you're really, really encouraged by it. But this is my very first encounter story. I'm really, as I said, excited, slightly nervous, but I'm going to give it a go. So my first encounter story is an encounter story that happened this year at the beginning of 2020. And it rang out over all of my life and in some sense healed the last 3 years of my life. The last 3 years of my life have been the best of times and the worst of times. You ever had a time like that where there's no sort of like middle ground? Everything's either really exciting or just really bad. And there's just no time for you to be able to sort of settle down and just have a time of peace. I'm an ideas person, I'm an entrepreneurial sort of person, I'm a pioneering person. I like nothing better than when I'm part of a project or a team that have got a focus and an aim and a goal that is new, is pioneering. They're breaking through into new ground. They're inventing something new. They're sort of like summoning up something completely fresh. And I love that. And for the last 3 years, my life has been full of that, which is why it's been full of peaks and joys and successes. And I've been absolutely thrilled by it all. But what it's meant in order to actually have that dynamic in my life is actually, I've had nothing but contracted work. Contracted work that obviously comes to an end. Contracted work that sometimes is for 2 weeks, sometimes is 2 months. If I'm lucky, half a year. But it was always that Friday when actually the contract had come to an end, and I'd sit there at the end of the day thinking, right, well, what am I going to do now? It's been fun, I've been thrilled by what I've been doing, I've loved the people I've met, and I've been really excited about the project, but what now? And boy, has it taught me a lot about faith and relying on God, for sure. So what it's meant really is that for the last 3 years, even though I've loved it, I've actually felt unemployed. Which is a new experience for me because I've been employed all my life. Some of the jobs have been good, a lot of the jobs have been not so good, but largely I've been able to roll up my sleeves and find something. Even if it's really menial, I've been able to find something. And I didn't realise, I guess, just how much my identity is wrapped up in my job, which has been part of the issue really. So the last 3 years, there's been such highs about being part of these exciting projects where who I am, I guess, as an ideas person has been really needed to sort of put flesh on the bone of ideas and to take them forward and to gather people into them and to get them off the ground and to give them a future. But equally, there's been those Fridays when it's come to an end and I felt really unemployed and really like, well, what am I doing and who am I and where am I going? And I've got to be honest and own this because I think it's important in our day and age. There were times when I was depressed. There were times when I was like, you know, what's going on? And I was really depressed. And I think it's really healthy to sort of own that sort of like emotional sort of season, because it's, I think, one of the greatest steps towards healing it. Anyway, beginning of this year, January 2020, I found myself in my hometown, London. And I love London, I really do. But it was a cold and grey day when on a Sunday over the weekend that I was in London, I went to church. And I got to be honest, I went to this church. It was a big church, a church that I absolutely really love. It's kind of what I consider to be my home church when I'm visiting my hometown, right in the centre of town. But it was a cold and grey day, and when I sat in the church, I felt also cold and grey. I hadn't had anywhere near enough coffee to sort of perk me up and get me going on that morning. And I sat there, and I've got to be honest, I wasn't really engaging with the service. It was okay, but I wasn't really engaging with it until a lady got up to read from the Bible. I didn't know what the readings were going to be that day, but she got up and she read from the Bible, and it was from a letter written from a guy called Paul. And it's a letter that he wrote to some Christians in Rome way back. And it's a letter now that if you don't know about the Bible, it's kind of like separated into chapters and verses so you can find where other people might say they're at. And it was chapter 15, verse 13 that rang out all over my life. And I'd like to read it to you now, if I may. He said this: "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." I sat bolt upright in my pew. I was filled with divine energy. I was filled with the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is God. It's his spirit. I was filled with him. It was a direct encounter with God. I went from a caffeine sort of like deficit slumber into a divine Holy Spirit filled alertness, and it rang out all over my life. And what I heard it as was God saying, "I'm the God of all hope." All hope. Which it actually doesn't say that specifically in the text. It says, "I am the God of hope." But of course, I guess it does mean I'm the God of all hope. And that's what I heard. And what I heard God say in that one verse to me in my heart, direct encounter with God, is actually the desert's over. The desert's over. I've been with you throughout the desert, but the desert's over. 2020 is going to be a completely different year for you. And as I record this encounter story, it's April 2020. And I wish I could impart to you some of the details of what God has already done in 2020. But I've got to sort of respect some of the confidences of the people out there and the projects that I'm involved in. But this South London street kid, as I kind of feel myself to be, is blown away by what the God of all hope, I'm going to say, has done. In that, what would it have been, 60 seconds, if that, God imparted that to me, that 2020 was going to be a different year, that the desert was over, but also that the 3 years of highs and lows, which I've got to be honest, in my humanness has felt more like a desert. He was also saying to me that those 3 years have not been lost. In those 3 years, Chris, I've been pruning you. I've been refining you. All the rough edges have been sort of knocked off you. And in fact, actually, Chris, for you to be able to enjoy in 2020, what I'm going to bring to you as the God of all hope, you kind of needed to have those things knocked off you. You needed the pruning. And I've got to be honest, I can see the fruit of that now. When I'm doing the stuff that he's asked me to do now in 2020, I don't think I could have done it had I not gone through that desert. Now, I'm on the fence as to whether God causes desert times or whether they occur naturally and he just uses them. I just don't know. And I really want to be honest as well as say that I wouldn't wish a desert time on myself or anyone else. I really wouldn't. I would sooner be, in terms of life, in a cozy sort of like time of success all the time. So desert times, don't really want to be in them. But standing here now, having been in a desert and hopefully am coming out the other end, I can say that I am able to do the stuff that God is calling me to do in 2020, largely because of that desert and largely because of the lessons that I learnt. So I say that humbly and I say that gently, especially if you are perhaps going through a desert time yourself right now. So I hope that encourages you. I hope this direct encounter story encourages you. And I hope the other encounter stories that my beautiful fellow digital storytellers, evangelist storytellers will be recording for you as the days, weeks and months and years go on. I really hope you're encouraged. God bless you, especially if you are in a desert time right now.